Service.
Hey everyone, welcome to Chef Sense. I'm your host, Chef Massey. We have CHOW coming on. I just wanted to do a brief introduction for them. Their acronym stands for Culinary, Hospitality, Outreach, and Wellness. They are a very special nonprofit organization that provides an outreach for all of us in the food and beverage industry. You'll hear Jasmin talk about that, but I want to go over some numbers that they actually display in their research. 63% of food and beverage hospitality professionals suffer from depression. 84% of food and beverage and hospitality workers feel stress from their jobs. 65% of food and beverage hospitality workers report using substances while at work. And 53% of food and beverage hospitality workers feel they've been pushed to their breaking point. And so, yes, those are very tough numbers that we just listened to. But the great thing is that there are organizations like CHOW. They are built for us because they're built by people that are us. We can take advantage of these opportunities to go, you know what? I'm not in a good place. I need a minute. I need to evaluate some things. And how do I go about doing that? Again, we've all been a part of this industry where you're dealing with outside life and the stressors and all of that, not to mention a career path that expects perfection at every turn. So today, we have places like this, people like this that are there to help us work on these things for a better and brighter and more longevity in the industry. And I think it's very important that we use tools like this. Love you guys. Let's roll into the episode. Today we have Jasmin from CHOW. So excited to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. We are so excited to be able to participate. These opportunities are invaluable to our organization, and I really appreciate it.
If you could go into, how CHOW started and how this kind of came to fruition. It's a really amazing story.
Yes, thank you. A few years ago, I think we're coming up on our 5th birthday. Essentially, our founder, John Hinman, who is a business owner, pie maker extraordinaire, he was very active in the food, beverage, hospitality community. And once he embarked on his recovery journey and returned to the food, beverage, hospitality industry, having amassed a lot of skills, tools, and resources, to assist him on his recovery journey, he then returned to the industry and found a lot of what he had felt before he left. So he had this idea to gather everybody to talk about where it hurts. That was his initial idea. The hurt we can't see, how do we address it? How do we learn to have conversations centered around it? And as it happens, we lost Anthony Bourdain a couple of days after this meeting was scheduled. And so what could have been just a couple of people getting together in his bakery and talking really ended up being a whole lot of people showing up and talking about what was hurting them, what their successes and struggles were. And that was essentially the first CHOW meeting. And then slowly, folks like myself and Aaron Boyle, CHOW's CEO, we just kind of started as attendees who then wanted to start our own chapters of CHOW so that we could bring CHOW to other areas of Colorado. And CHOW started having, CHOW Colorado Springs, CHOW Steamboat Springs, CHOW Vale. And we were incredibly fortunate through the pandemic to be able to switch to an online/hybrid model. So currently, all of our meetings happen in person in Colorado. We are currently expanding outside of Colorado, but they are accessible and available from anywhere in the world. So folks have been joining us from literally anywhere in the world in our Zoom rooms. And we've also expanded to education, which is available online, resource brokering, and we pride ourselves on being a listening organization. So the more needs come up within the food, beverage, hospitality community that we are made aware of, the more we develop programming to meet those needs.
Okay. And that's just amazing. Looking at the process, and like you had said, people coming and zooming in and being a part of those meetings, I have done that. And in that process, working through my career path, recognizing how important mental health really is in, the industry, and really how much it has been really swept under the rug in many different aspects. And so many of them, and I guess for me, I go, I've been in the food and beverage industry over 30 years, and 22 years as an executive chef. So I guess in a sense, for many of us, it kind of raises you up. The industry it raises you. You're going along in that process with leadership and the stress of what we deal with. And, you're also as a human being, right? Like you're learning yourself as a person, not just an employee in the industry, but then if you step into leadership, you're going right into that and you're growing too. So you guys are so special because I think this opportunity today where someone can go into those meetings, and or go into those key speaker meetings, which are just great. It does remind me a lot of a 12-step program of how those rooms operate. So, yeah.
We started off, the question that we used to get so much when we first started is this AA for chefs? Is that what this is?
Yeah,
Um,
right.
yes, there's definitely, we pride ourselves on, CHOW is here because we call it CHOW is us helping us.
Hmm.
This is based on the idea that, currently studies show us that the food, beverage, hospitality industry is growing at immense rates. So that currently, if every clinical certified mental health provider were to fill their docket completely with hospitality workers, we would still outnumber them 29 times over.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a staggering statistic. So we
Oh.
figured out that, not only do we not have basic foundational access to mental health care, right? Most
Hmm.
folks that work in the industry are underinsured, marginalized, and often not earning enough to pay for therapy out of pocket. And so we've figured out that the peer support model, right, having a person in the room who is mediating the conversation. And here's, I think, where we differ a little bit in where we diverge a little from that 12-step model. Our rooms are moderated by someone called an expos, right? It's a term we're
Okay.
familiar with, who just kind of
Right.
facilitates the conversation between the attendees and the general temperature of the room.
Right.
So we start off by doing a temperature take because we are industry folks. So we often have more words for food than we have for our feelings. So
Right.
we check in on a scale of rare to well done, rare meaning juicy, full of life, well done meaning I've been on the grill for far too long, take me off, I'm tapping out. And this expos, what they're doing is based on the temperature shares in the room, they're finding a common thread of conversation to bring the conversation forward, and everybody walks away with a takeaway. So it's met with skills, resources, a person that's going to check up on your temperature the week
Hmm.
after. So there's this idea that even though we are not clinical mental health providers, that, armed with the same resources and the same systems of support, that we can, essentially build a sustainable workforce from the ground up where everybody has equal resources versus this kind of outdated hierarchical model that the industry has been functioning on for so long, where we have the kind of managers, owners, and operators parentified up here,
Mm.
and they're largely responsible, for the employee.
Right.
And there's such a big discrepancy with that, right?
Right. Wow. That's amazing. How are you feeling like in the sense feedback, as this is building? I mean, it's doing very well.
It is. We're growing immensely. We are incredibly grateful. For most of us, Aaron and I have been there just about since the beginning, and it has been a huge labor of love for us.
Hmm.
We currently have folks who are still in the industry, but Aaron and I are industry veterans. I'll
Yeah.
speak for myself personally.
Sure.
I got involved with CHOW because I worked through half of the pandemic, and my career generally used to fluctuate in the sense that when I was doing the best career wise, it's when my mental health was often doing the worst.
Mm.
I was a product of the Great Resignation, and I kind of had to look at myself and
Yeah.
see, it doesn't get much higher than this. So I'm an executive chef, I'm head of food and beverage of the whole food and beverage department, and I'm just not doing well. And odds are that
Yeah.
in you, unless I figure out what it is that makes it so that when I'm working, when my career is just off the charts, that I'm struggling so much personally, then I won't be able to stay in the industry. And
Um,
so a lot of what we do is centered around the idea that we don't want folks to leave the industry. We want folks to
no.
do what they're passionate about and continue to live well and to
Mhm.
be able to show up to work as whole, supported human beings. So it's for sure a labor of love for us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's just remarkable. And I think looking at it, it's so interesting because I kind of came up in that model, which I know you're aware of, is that the old school tough love, or like you never really shared your feelings. Like if you said you couldn't handle something, that just wasn't acceptable, you know? And there's just so many challenges that we deal with in our industry. That men and women deal with. Women most definitely, for me coming up too with the glass ceiling and some of these challenges. So there's a lot to talk about in our industry, and I really love our people, and we're so diversified and just this huge melting pot of culture and everything. It's pretty special. So to be able to work this process and take care of yourself, I think for some of us, it can be kind of uncomfortable in the beginning, So,
Oh, yeah.
how has that been? And some of us kind of being okay with sitting where we are, and those thoughts and emotions that we're just kind of understanding that and working the process.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I like to characterize myself as a person who is in long-term emotional recovery.
Hmm.
I left the industry 3 years ago, and I am still a person who attends two child support groups a week, and I go to therapy weekly.
Yep.
And I do this so that I can learn how to be a human being in a way that I never knew before. I'm a third generation chef. My father was a chef who
Oh, that's
parented.
awesome.
Yeah, like he
Okay.
chefed.
Okay.
And so that kind of like dysfunction of the food and beverage hospitality industry, the offbeat hours, the very the loud directions, rapid fire directions shouted at you, that kind of dysfunction and chaos was very familiar and very comfortable for
Sure.
me.
I would
And
imagine.
yeah, and then leaving the the quiet and trying to integrate into, civilian life,
Right, right.
it was impossible. And if you think about it, many of the systems that we are molded after, right? Like the military, when folks leave the military, it will be the time, and whether these systems work or not is a completely different conversation. But
Yeah,
there are systems to check on people to make sure that they can reintegrate into society because they recognize that they have largely been living marginalized for years.
sure.
Our industry is modeled after the military brigade system, but when you stop being a chef, when you start working hospitality, the hospitality industry spits you back out with your opposing work hours and your disordered eating habits
Hmm.
and or propensity for loudness. It spits you
Yep.
back out, says, cool, pick yourself up and go do something else. I found that to be incredibly alienating. I struggled so much and I have a bachelor's in marketing, so I had something to fall
Wow.
on, but my mom
Sure.
never made that connection. I said, I've been working in kitchens since I was 18 years old. I've never been anything else. I will never be
Hmm.
anything else. Where do I
Yeah.
go from here? Um, and at CHOW, which is that we need vocationally specific resources
Hmm.
because we have vocationally specific challenges.
Yeah.
I started going to therapy right after I left the industry because I knew I wasn't going to be able to integrate on my own. And oftentimes the things that I was just explaining to my therapist were
Yeah.
things that they just couldn't get on board behind.
Right.
It's difficult to talk to a mental health professional, even when I was in the industry, and say, I am burnt out and I can't go to work tomorrow, and explain to them, how compulsive that need feels to have to go to work tomorrow because we're understaffed. I can't sit this out. I'm a leader. If I sit it,
Right.
what will the rest of my staff do? Because to them, it was just like set a boundary and meet that boundary. And I was like, you don't understand how it works in the
Yeah.
industry. There is no boundary. I'm expected to show up.
Right.
So it wasn't until I went into a chow room, very diffident of how the system would work because I was a little
Hmm.
bit, just a little cautious with therapy. I didn't feel very understood. And then I walked into a chow room and everybody is talking about the same things that I'm feeling. You know,
Right.
here are my struggles, here are my successes. And I was like, well, dang, me too. Me too.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was a game changer for me. And also the reframe for us that we like to do this reframe. Self-care is a very
Hmm.
marked term nowadays.
Yep.
For folks like us, industry folks, we hear self-care and we think, bath bombs and days off and like that. We
Yeah.
we reframe that term and we say it's actually self-service, and you already know service. Service is
Yes.
something, like the back of your hand. So really, let's reframe that idea, take the bath bomb out, and let's look at self-service. Like, what can Tuesday Jasmine do to set up Thursday Jasmine in the smallest possible way? Can I take those 10 cans of Red Bulls that I drink on the line and
Yeah.
turn them into 8, and then have a bottle of water at can number 4? Because that's a win. That's absolutely a win.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I think what's really cool is that you guys have structured this so that you're speaking our lingo because you come from us, and to hear that, you go, okay, it's a very codependent relationship that you have with your team and your environment. And to be able to take, what you're sharing and going, okay, these check valves are very important for yourself, which we just steamrolled over, and they end up going into maladaptive behaviors, and can oftentimes lead to addiction. And that's a tough thing is, there's many people that are in it and in that addiction, or there's some that, I've buried, unfortunately, over the years. And it just, those sorts of things kind of resonate with you, like you're saying. I mean, it's in your DNA. And, whether it's multi-generational culinarians that you're a part of in your DNA, to being raised by an industry of beautiful misfits, that it becomes the new you. And, I often say it's called disrutting. How do I get out of that rut? And that's where, for me, like you said, I've been in those rooms, and those rooms are so special. It's a spiritual, experience with people, with all of us in there. And because again, you going back to the militaristic concept of a kitchen, we are battle seasoned. I mean, many of us work so hard for that one shot to get into the next level, and we haven't fully seasoned, as a leader. And we step right into it, and it's just, you're inundated. I mean, you're learning by fire constantly. So yeah, I totally get it. It's amazing, these, being able to share with people. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely, I like to call myself the CHOW poster child for success, because it was definitely a big part of why I'm so passionate about the work that we do, is because it largely worked on me. It gave me a sense of community at a point in my life where I'd never felt more marginalized. The camaraderie, we don't talk often
Right.
enough about how this band of misfit toys, essentially, we say we're a family for a reason.
Yep.
Despite, ignoring the typical red flags that come when we characterize something as a family, that means that it comes with an inherent kind of dysfunctional value system and all of that.
Yes.
But I felt when I first left that I was never going to experience camaraderie like that again. And uh, I know now that that's not true. There's something on
Right.
the side of that, but that feeling for the first couple of months left me bereft. I was like, this part of my personality is just never going to feel nurture like it
Right.
did. And to be honest, I think I've had to do a lot of amends since leaving the industry. I
Sure.
was mentored with a lot of violence and abuse. I,
Okay.
yeah, I started
Sorry
cooking
to
in
hear that. Yeah.
yeah, and I was a very big participant in that as well. I think being in the United States, where there's a lot more monitoring and HR departments, probably kept
Mm-hmm.
me from being as harmful as I could have been.
Yep.
But I had to make a lot of amends and sit with that. The
Yep.
idea, it's true that I didn't know better, so I couldn't do better, but also that I hold a lot of responsibility in really propagating these harmful stereotypes of what leadership looks like, in the back of the house of the kitchen. And, that's a really difficult thing to sit with if you don't have people to hold it with you. So
Right.
the ability to say that in a room, I have been a damaging leader. I have done damage to the folks that I worked with. And can anybody relate to that? And
Yeah.
being to extend that vulnerability to myself and to not be met with judgment because so
Right.
many understand it. That
Yep.
was exceptional
Right.
instrument to my growth and healing process.
And that's amazing. Going back to like our foundation, even though we came up a bit differently, what what do you find attracted you into this, caravan?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been thinking about that for years, and I think in my case it was kind of inevitable. I do think that when one of your parents works in the hospitality industry, and we don't talk about this enough because we talk about children, for example, that come from a military family, right? They have an
Yep.
entire awareness month dedicated to them. For their resilience and the things that we recognize that military children have to go without in order to have a parent in the military. And I'm not likening those two experiences. My husband's in the military, so I
Mhm.
know, I understand the extent to which my own children suffer at long-term separation and
Sure.
all of that. But as a child who was raised by a chef and business owner, you know, there was no holidays at home. It was largely
Yep.
like holidays hosted at the restaurant, where the family's sitting at one of the tables and everyone else is being served. And there's a dad will come out of the kitchen for a couple of minutes to blow out your birthday candles, but we're largely just having dinner at the restaurant because that's the
Yep.
only way you can get him to interact. So to me, there was a lot of normality, very early on. It was like, take a couple of shifts and help us out with the register, take a couple of serving shifts and help us out with this. I'm incredibly grateful for the work ethic that it instilled in me that I started with,
Yeah.
very, very early, that I was able to, pursue a 4-year bachelor's degree while at the same time working full time in a kitchen.
Hmm.
So it felt inevitable because it felt incredibly comfortable and familiar. I knew, I could see that sense of relief when service was over for my dad, and that after shift drink and the
Hmm.
culture of the restaurants. And you know it seemed incredibly attractive to me. I also came up, in the generation of idolizing the Marco Pierre Whites and the
Yep.
Anthony Bourdains of the world. And I didn't see myself represented in that industry, right? Because I still think to this day we do not have a female equivalent of Anthony Bourdain. But
No, yeah.
and teenage me was enamored with these men behind the line. It was just like, I'm gonna make,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Well, and the thing is too, I think going into it, looking at the other, as we're talking about generations, seeing how our industry has kind of shifted, food, TV, and social media has really glamorized, many years of the industry, and kind of sucked people in. And today I think there's more of this understanding of mental health and space and boundaries. So when you have the next generations kind of coming in and going, well, yeah, I'll pick up and do this and that, but I need to, I have an outside life or I have these things going on, and we never did that. So and maybe at one point I'm kind of like, I'm a little jealous, but at the same time, it's great that we are taking that notice and we're going, wait a minute. No, we do need to change this. I mean, how do you? I have partnered with an amazing company, Thrive Market. Thrive Market is an online natural food store. It's a one-stop shop. They have 6,000 plus products, and they are curated by their experts, organic, non-GMO, vegan, paleo, keto, gluten-free, you name it. Thrive Market caters to it. Up to 50% off retail at times, delivered to your door. With our crazy lives, couldn't be a better match. Anyways, take advantage of this opportunity. Go to thrivemarket.com/Chef Massey and get your membership free gift up to $60 and 30% off your first order. Now back to the episode.
I love it, to be honest with you.
Yep.
I have a 9-year-old daughter who, up until recently, wanted to be a chef just like mama. And that used to
Yep.
terrify me when she used to
Yep.
say it. And now, the last time she said it a few months ago, I can kind of like temperature check the things that I'm seeing, and I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I want
Right.
I want to play an instrumental role in building the industry that I deserved and so many of us deserved.
Yep.
Um, because there are so many passionate people that love food and love hospitality, and they deserve to be met with resources and support and
Right.
encouragement, and to be able to live their life well. And we often hear this. We're lucky enough to be able to participate in listening tours where we'll be able
Hmm.
to organize, different geographical locations. We get business owners, managers, and operators in a room together, and we say, what's working, what's not, tell us what
Hmm.
you think. And we conduct surveys with their staff to see how those answers and questions kind of stack up against each other. And Aaron and I were recently in a room where somebody said, I've been in this industry for 37 years, and now these younger kids are coming in and this is their first job, and they're talking to me about the shifts that I can handle and shifts that I can't handle. And I've been working 16 hours on my feet 37 years.
Yeah,
And, we kind of sat with it for a moment because that's fair. That's legitimate. There's
absolutely. Yeah.
so many of us accepted mistreatment as a regular price to pay for our love of food and the love of our,
Right.
and then I said to him, thank you for your service. That must have been so difficult. How
Sure.
exceptional that you get to play an instrumental role in paving the way for what a healthier workforce looks like.
Yep.
And he was genuinely emotional.
Yeah.
Uh
Oh,
genuinely
I could
emotional.
only imagine.
Yeah. And
Yep.
it's like, we talk often when we talk about the new workforce, about the dinosaurs that won't let go. But the truth is that,
Yep.
so many of us are tired and want to stay in the industry longer and would
Sure.
have wanted to stay in the industry longer. So, largely no one's mad about the industry becoming healthier. It's just so difficult to see the industry be so different, right? As
Right.
people are pushing a boundary. And it's a
Right.
painful thing because I hear about young folks and their practices and their boundaries all the time, and I
Yeah.
think, gosh, if I had known that, if I had pushed that, I might have stayed longer. It might not have been over so
Sure.
soon. That's a hard thing to sit with.
Yeah, well, and that it is, but it's also a great point that some relationships for some people or some experiences in life, I mean, maybe we would have taken a vacation more often,
Oh my gosh.
you know? And in that you have another level experience for yourself, with that self-care, but like you totally bypass all of that. I do wish and I do hope for the industry. I know the young ones are so eager and everything. I get concerned about, and that's just been a struggle of making sure that we kind of earn our way too, with wisdom, I should
Mm.
say, not relentless craziness that we dealt with or that we're trying to work out of today, but just that opportunity to slow it down and earn that wisdom in the industry so that you're battle ready. And I guess, the other flip side to that is, well, you're also paying for culinary school, a number of them. I did not go to culinary school. I went to the School of Hard Knocks, but many of them are, you know, they they come out that they've got to be driven, they've got to pay that school back. They've got, and they push themselves really hard to jump right into something. So anyways,
This is, yeah, you're absolutely true. And look at how the media is shifting alongside that. I love that you mentioned that as well, because, probably on the tail end of when I was already in the industry, now it was the time where we started to cook a little bit, to focus a little bit on cooking personalities. And, the Anthony Bourdain and Marco Pierre White model that trickled into the Gordon Ramsay model,
yeah,
just always, we've had just such a mainstream understanding of glorifying these practices that to us were damaging, harmful, difficult, but that they really made it look like attractive on the outside, kind of a
yeah.
ride or die mentality. And we're participating currently. We've put together a petition for, I don't know if you're a fan of the bear. I'm a huge fan.
Oh, yes, of course. Yep.
Yeah. It's been one of my favorite things to watch. In fact, watching episodes of The Bear probably does as much work for me as going to therapy does. Uh,
Okay.
oh yeah,
I'm
because
jealous. I have to get a brown paper bag and work on breathing,
well, so
because it's
similar.
intense. It's funny, but yeah,
Yeah. I find myself alternating between being incredibly triggered and activated to the point where
right.
sometimes I have to pause and walk away. To the next episode, I am flooded with an intense FOMO. I should have never left. This is what it was about. This is incredible. Look at this, this
Yeah,
love that I'm talking, and the
right.
fluctuation between episodes. And we've put together a petition asking for the producers, the creators of the show to be able to add mental health resources at the end of it, because
Yeah,
we recognize that these things are the way that the industry is being portrayed in the media is largely accurate,
Hmm.
and but it is activating. And so if we're depicting the industry the way that it is currently,
Yep.
the industry the way that it is currently also for the first time in a long time comes with actual supports for people.
Right.
And we deserve to have the industry accurately depicted, while at the same time letting folks know that this might be the industry today, but there's also supports here. There's CHOW and organizations like CHOW that can offer additional support in
Yeah.
order to, take care of this emotional dysregulation that you might be feeling after this episode, or whatever feelings are being dredged up by this depiction of the industry.
Well, it's very interesting. And again, I'm not trying to put the militaristic sort of battle zone concept comparing the two, but I help. It's kind of tough because there are some likenesses in some levels of, and I don't know, and maybe you've seen it over your time if they've developed an understanding of some level of PTSD. I don't know if that's true or not. Do you know of anything like that? Because we do,
Yeah.
you know.
We talk in our mental health course. We have a 4-hour mental health course where we talk about mental health challenges and diagnoses, how they show up in the industry, how do we recognize them, how do we make room for them, right?
Yeah,
Because we recognize that not everybody walks into a kitchen with just their knife roll. People are coming in with pre-existing conditions, complex trauma. One of the things that
sure.
we talk about is, CPTSD. And so there's this idea that like our behavior largely changes based on the way that we experience capital T trauma and little
Hmm.
t trauma. So we talk a little bit about, what does that mean and what do you walk away from?
Right.
And how do we make room and integrate that into our lives? Similarly, disordered eating, not to be confused with an eating disorder, but I'm a person who I'm 3 years out of the industry and I still
Yep.
can't eat warm food. I mean, I have not had a largely warm meal since I left the industry. If I'm sitting at a restaurant, I can't sit too close
Wow.
to the kitchen
Yep.
because I hear tickets coming in. There's no way I'm
Hmm.
having a conversation with you. And I will sit at a restaurant and I will have a 10-minute conversation, just moving my food around until it cools down because I have not
Wow.
eaten a warm meal since I was 17 years old and I'm coming up
Right.
30.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so these things that are, we think are just our insulated experience, but they're really not. They're pretty typical undertones that bind all of us, and we're now starting to have the tools to recognize: is this
Yep.
PTSD? Is this disordered eating? Is
Yep.
this ADHD masking as, a person being very efficient? What is it?
Right.
And that's a big part of our education, being able
Right.
to see these things in yourself and in others so that we're not using damaging language anymore, like, oh, don't touch his knife set. He's so ADHD about it.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, right.
he's
Yeah,
so OCD about his knife roll. And you're like, well, that's not really OCD. He just likes to keep his stuff neat. And
yeah, yeah, right.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
there
don't.
are those tags.
Yes, absolutely. And so
Wow.
separating that gives us this kind of ownership because for so long we've been a band of misfits.
Yep.
We're already projecting like, oh, don't worry about it. We're just a band of misfits making do.
Yep.
Sure, it's the way we want to relate to each other, that we are people whose life experience fits comfortably in other people's life experience in a kitchen setting. That's fine. But, this large representation of, the hot mess misfits in the kitchen, it also comes from a scarcity mindset. We deserve to feel safe at work. We deserve to feel represented at work. We deserve to feel heard at work. And as long as
Right.
we're relating about ourselves and each other in these kind of terms, like it's not so serious, we don't have to look at the hard truth, which is that it is serious. It's our livelihood, it's our passion, and it deserves to be sustainable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I always say, gaining the wisdom, between the ears to extend the years,
Yeah, I love that.
is the goal. What I was thinking about is you kind of shared about going in and working with, restaurateurs or businesses. What is that with that workplace, your CHOW workplace toolkit, wellness
Yeah.
toolkit? Can you talk
Yeah.
about that? You kind of
Absolutely.
vaguely did. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things that we have done. So, a product of our listening tours that I mentioned before, where we do these local think tanks, we get owners, operators, and managers together. We ask them what's working and what's not, where they're struggling. Is your primary concern to being understaffed? Is it the bottom
Yeah.
line? Where's this coming from? Then we kind of take that temperature take and compare it to their employees. We give them resources. We send follow ups. So, we open up these conversations. Well, in these listening tours, we started hearing, excellent tips that people were doing that were working really well for their staff on the other end. So we said, let's collate this information together and share it. So if you visit our website at chowco.org, you'll be able to find a free downloadable PDF, which is a really hefty stack. It's called the
Wow.
Workplace Toolkit. And it's got tabs on the right-hand side that have either a 5-minute increment, a 10-minute increment, $5, $10. So based on whatever investment you have of your time or money on any given day, you flip to the page of what you have to invest, 5 minutes or $5, so that it's self-led. And it gives you a tip that you can try out with your staff today. You try that tip
Okay.
out for a finite amount of time, you evaluate if it's working. These are things like anything ranging from, can we do a pre-shift temperature take with the staff?
Hmm.
Um, which seems super simple, right? Except often if you talk to owners and operators, they say, okay, so I'm going to do a pre-shift temp check with the staff. And if I have
Hmm.
somebody checking in at a well done, like, I can't do this, what am I supposed to do? Send them home? I'm understaffed. Well,
Right.
here's what we can do. Stagger the scheduled shift differently so that they get, 3 breaks within the first hour and then they can carry over for the remainder of the shift. Can he switch positions with somebody? Can she step off the line and do prep instead? So there's actual actionable items of follow through
Hmm.
should anything come up during those things, so that these are temperature checks that are actually feasible, and we're not telling you to just try something that wouldn't actually work in this model. And so they go anywhere ranging from a temperature check to, what does it look like to eliminate a shift drink, take that budget and invest it into something else. uh,
Okay. Right.
and how do I have these conversations with my staff to find out what it is that they really want, so that I'm not, as a leader, making decisions largely for them and ending up with unsatisfied staff. So it covers the entire thing, coupled with our scripts for difficult conversations,
Okay. Wow.
which is incredible. We've had those vetted by legal professionals and trauma
Okay.
informed clinicians. And same thing, you flip to the page, I want to have a conversation with my boss about a raise, or I want to have a conversation with my staff about how I think they might have shown up um, drunk on the last shift. You flip
Okay.
to the page that you need to go, and it gives you all of an actual script that you can follow,
Wow.
that keeps you protected legally, that makes you show up with a lot of tenderness and consideration for trauma that a person
Yeah.
may. And it guides you through these conversations so that we can use these models, these toolkits, so that we can start having these conversations so that they become a natural occurrence, that, folks can train other folks on. And then one day we're all just having conversations where we're all seen, heard, and represented.
Wow. Well, and that's just amazing. I mean, what a great opportunity to put that into work. What's your feedback been over that in the trial of it? I mean,
We are incredibly excited. We've received a lot of support, especially with the Workplace Wellness Toolkit. We love that we are able to showcase our partners and their practices, because we pride ourselves on being a listening organization. And so we don't want to put things into development that aren't necessary or needed. And so, when folks get back to us and they say, I tried the Workplace Wellness Toolkit, I've been doing
yep.
the shake, it's working incredible, I managed to see this return of my investment, I haven't had
Wow.
this. We love to hear it. We love to
Right.
hear, yeah,
And
small change,
that's
great big change. We love that.
Oh, that's so cool. Looking at the website, they can go right on there to meetings,
Yeah.
and take a look at the scheduled meetings. Did I read that are there certain days you don't have meetings, or there's less meetings during the week?
Yes. Currently, I think our Friday, Saturday, no, I'm sorry, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there are no
Hmm.
meetings scheduled. These things are always in development. So, stay
Yeah.
tuned. But the majority of our meetings, we have one meeting happening on Monday. We have 4 on Tuesday. We have 2 on Wednesday. We have 1 on Sunday. We have
Okay.
dedicated spaces for all women's meetings, all men's meetings. We have an offshoot CHOW leadership meeting every now and then that
Okay.
is a pop up. We have a Spanish speaking meeting. Yes. and they're all available online through our website, super
Okay.
accessible.
And that's awesome. So also looking at other support avenues that you guys do provide. I mean, you even help people financially on some aspects as well, right?
We do. So we don't do this directly. A big part of our programming is called resource brokering. So what that
Okay.
means is that all CHOW folks, myself included, we are all trained to know the vocationally specific resources to help
Okay.
with any kind of situation that you might be having. So we have often folks that come to us and they say, I'm a victim of intimate partner abuse. Do you
Okay.
know, and I'm in the industry, do you know where I can go to get support? We will sit with you while you fill out forms, while you call, while you do a warm handover with someone. Our official motto for this is that, I'm concerned about the situation, but I'm
Yeah.
not qualified. CHOW may not be the organization that has developed programming around how
Yeah.
to help, but we are all trained as to how to get you to a warm handover and then check in with you a week later to see how it's doing, and then check in with you 3 weeks later to see that you got to the
Wow.
right. So we have just about, if you check out our resource page, and we encourage folks, take a look at the resources available. And if you need additional support, you just fill out a form and we give you a call and we sit on the phone with you and we do the warm handover. All of this is
Okay.
free and it helps with anything you can think of. We've helped folks with financial assistance,
Yeah.
domestic violence situations, folks that are trying to leave the industry or go into the industry,
Right.
resume
Wow.
support, just about anything that you can think of that folks in the food, beverage, hospitality industry might need support with.
Okay.
We somebody that can sit with them and get them to the appropriate place.
Okay. And that's awesome. When you guys are looking at like, sponsors and partnerships, how has that been for you guys? Are you getting the support and things that you need
We've
in that and building?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate so far. We apply for a lot of grants. We
Yep.
have a lot of wellness sponsors and partners that want to, maybe sponsor a meet and greet in a specific area. We have Connect for Health Colorado, for example, has been instrumental to our growth so far. Kaiser, they'll, say we'll sponsor this part of this event to be able to do this. And we have been incredibly fortunate that even though we have never sought out the support of the food, beverage, hospitality industry, because we want to raise the barriers to entry, we do
Yep.
not solicit donations or any of that. We have had folks who have just rallied to fundraise for us by
Oh,
doing things,
wow.
round up the check and donate to CHOW and their POS systems, or
Okay.
just a cocktail for a cause for CHOW and donate, $1 for each cocktail sold. And we have received incredible fundraising support from one of the avenues that we largely didn't expect because it's the community that we serve. So we've been very fortunate so far, for sure.
Okay. As people are listening, how can they get involved in that aspect? Who do they connect with? And
So the cool part about our website is that we have a contact us form that
okay.
routes directly to my email. So any questions would arrive directly to me, and I make sure that folks are, going to the appropriate place that they need support with.
Yep.
We also have a donate feature on the website if folks are choosing to donate. We sell merch that largely funnels back in, and
Oh,
it gives,
cool.
yeah, a forward facing wave, just kind of how, which
Very
is pretty
cool.
cool. So, and we say there's no small way to participate in the community and in spreading the
Yep.
movement. Be as easy as sharing a social media post or signing a petition, or coming to the mental health course, which is a free course. We charge a $15 placeholder to reserve your spot, which is returned to you. But
Okay.
there are many ways to support the growth of the
Oh, that's
community that don't necessarily have to be monetary.
yep.
But we are a nonprofit, and so the monetary part is a necessary part to keep our programming free of cost for
Sure.
IT professionals, for sure.
Well, and looking at as it develops, I mean, do you actually see some of these hubs in the future branching further out? I mean, that's quite a bit of work to do, but do you see that in the future?
We love that work. It is not
Okay.
work that we're afraid of. We are currently, actually, in March, we are rolling out our first announcement about rolling out our first CHOW in DC meeting. We'll be rather expanding to Washington, DC. And I'm assuming that very much like it has historically gone with CHOW, once one little step is set into motion for growth, it usually picks up after that. So
Right.
always looking for ways to expand and grow the movement.
Well, that's a great problem to have. Any final words? Any words of wisdom?
Oh my gosh, any words of wisdom? Take good care of yourselves. For anyone that's listening, take good care of yourselves. You are so valued, and we're so glad that you're here. And yeah, come join us. Let's talk about it. Whatever it is, let's talk about it. I want folks to know, often the questions that we get, is this just a event fest? Is it a for chefs? First, it's for everyone in the food, beverage, hospitality industry and adjacent. We even have an attendee that has been with us for years, who is just an ally. He's just a
Mm,
patron, a guy who largely credits the food, beverage, hospitality industry and those connections for getting him through the pandemic.
cool.
Um, when he was able to get takeout food and take it back home, those were the only interactions he had. And post pandemic, he came to one of our meetings and said, I just want to be a better patron and I
Yeah.
just want to support you folks. How do I do that? We have students, industry writers, we have vets, industry veterans, we have farmers, there are so many folks that are a part of our all-inclusive definition of food, beverage, hospitality, and it is an exceptional place to come share about your successes and struggles with folks who fundamentally get it, have
Yeah.
either been or, need support because they are there. And I cannot speak about the benefits enough. And you can join us camera on, camera off with an alias if that's what feels best.
Wow.
It is not required, but if that's something that you need support with, we can get you to the right place. And it's a super welcoming, brave space for anybody in the food, beverage, hospitality industry and adjacent. So come give it a try, is what I would say is my final words wisdom.
That's so awesome. I just want to say thank you all for, your time, Jasmine, and what you do, what the group does there.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, everyone. That is a wrap. You can check us out if you like that. Subscribe. Also, the Instagram, Chef Massey. Let's keep it simple. ChefMassey.com. Have a good one. Bye for now.